Next up in our exit interviews, Jeff Skinner.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks for making Locked On Sabres your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on our YouTube channel. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in on today's show. Bunch of stuff to get to, including our Jeff Skinner exit interview, his season recapped, and looking ahead, a couple of burning questions that pertain to Skinner. We'll get connected with our fans with some YouTube comments. We'll go through what's happening with the Rochester Americans, 2 big wins over the weekend. And one question I have pertaining to the Sabres and a hypothetical if they had made the playoffs, and I think it's a more relevant question now, that the Boston Bruins, after a record-breaking regular season, the greatest regular season we have ever seen, 130-plus points, 65 wins, and they lost to the Florida Panthers in the first round. So I got a question pertaining to the Sabres about that coming up in just a little bit. So all that ahead at Sneaky Joe Sports. If you want to follow me on Twitter at Locked On Sabres for the podcast account. And the best way to get connected with our show is either on our Locked On Sabres Twitter account or on our YouTube channel underneath our video here. Question, comment, reaction. In fact, on our last episode, we had a couple of comments about Brandon Montour and what Dawson wrote about Montour and how he's been great for the Panthers this year. And now he said if he would have played half as well as he has this season for the Sabres, he would have had a long-term contract in Buffalo. I agree, but Sabres GM Kevin Adams did go on a podcast recently and talked about Montour's time in Buffalo, and he said it was really more about the timing. And I think what he means there is Montour only got 15 games in with Don Granato. Montour played most of his games here with the Sabres with Ralph Kruger as his head coach. And Ralph Kruger had no idea how to utilize anybody to the best of their abilities. And that doesn't stop at Jeff Skinner. That doesn't stop at Rasmus Dahlin. That goes on to Brandon Montour. Montour with Kruger was a victim of the same things Dahlin was. Wasn't allowed to freely move around. Was kind of locked in a box in certain spots in which he could skate. Had to get the puck off his stick if he was entering the neutral zone. He wasn't allowed to carry it in himself. And all of that equated 42 points in 112 games with the Sabres. This year alone, he has 73 points with the Panthers. And that does not include the 5 goals that he had in the postseason. 5 goals in that 7-game series against the Boston Bruins. But we'll get to that a little bit later on. So an interesting question about Montour. He's the exact defenseman the Sabres need right now. Right shot, top 4 defenseman, puck mover, but solid in their own end to pair with Owen Power. Man, Montour would be perfect. But alas, timing didn't work there, I think is the best way to put it. All right, we'll start with some Amerks stuff before we get to the playoffs and then our Jeff Skinner exit interview. The Amerks are still alive. Now, they were down 2-0 in their 5-game series against the Syracuse Crunch. And then they had 2 home games on Friday and Sunday. And watching those games back, watching a little bit of those games live, couple of takeaways that I had watching the Amerks in the postseason. One, Jiri Kulich back on the ice, really strong, 2 games, 2 goals, 1 assist. And the thing that is jumping off the page the most from Kulich is his release. His wrist shot, his one-timer, the 2 ways he scored the 2 goals. He's generated a ton of chances. He had 7 shots on goal in Game 4 on Sunday. He was everywhere on the ice. I will say, in the 2 games that I have watched, he has been very poor defensively. And that his reputation is someone that you would think even early in their careers could be a reliable player in their own end, bottom 6 if he needs to, while he grows into his offensive game. That was not happening in those 2 games that I witnessed, but, season as a whole, he's been better than that. But man, the release is on display with this guy. He is generating offense. He's a good puck carrier, but again, the shot release is the thing I've been most taken aback from. Like it is on another level. It's on an NHL level right now. Isaac Rosen was also playing really well. He actually was throwing his body around a little bit. He's one of the smallest player on the Amerks in terms of weight, and he needs to probably put on, what is he at, like 165 right now? He's probably got to put on 20 more pounds of muscle before he plays with the Sabres, and maybe that can happen this summer. That's a lot to do in one summer. But throwing his body around a little bit, you see the speed with this guy. Rosen, it is speed. It is a dynamic burst. He can move side to side. He had one nice wrist shot goal in game 3 on Friday night in the Amerks 8-5 win over Syracuse. By the way, they won 8-5 on game 4 Friday and 4-0 on Sunday. Malcolm Subban with a big shutout on Sunday. But Rosen, it's the speed that I was noticing. Number one, Kulich, it was the release. Other things I picked up on, some of the veteran guys that aren't going to make the Sabres someday. Lawrence Pilot, big slap shot from the point and a goal on Sunday. He's been playing top 4 minutes for them, been playing an important role. Subban, as I mentioned, shutout on Sunday. Really good. Michael Mersch, the captain of the Amerks, he had a hat trick on Sunday. So the Amerks push it to a game 5-game series. So winner take all. It's in Syracuse. That is next Saturday at 7:00. So it's still drivable. If you want to make the drive up to Syracuse, you got a big game 5 for the Amerks. And, Linus Weissbach, another Sabre prospect, 4 points in 4 games. Otherwise, those have kind of been the biggest takeaways, I thought, from the Amerks 4 games so far. When we come back, were the Sabres capable of doing to Boston what Florida did? We'll explore that. I put a poll up on Twitter, and I have some good responses from that. So we'll get to that when we come back, and then we'll get to our Jeff Skinner exit interview coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. And we are presented by Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens, I start my day every day with it, whether it's the shakes or whether it's the drops that you put right in your water. It's one delicious scoop of AG1, and you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. It's a special blend of ingredients that supports your gut health, your nervous system, and your immune system. It's lifestyle-friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. Contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, or artificial anything. Athletic Greens has over 7,000 5-star reviews. It's recommended by professional athletes and trusted by leading health experts. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health. Arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water. Shake it up every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you got to do, visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take over your health and take ownership over the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Welcome back to the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day for our everydayers. Next time on the show, Alex Tuch exit interview, among other playoff-related things like Lindy Ruff and the Devils playing Game 7 against the New York Rangers. Let's get to, though, my burning question about the Sabres and my hypothetical about the playoffs. The big news in the Stanley Cup playoffs is that the Florida Panthers knocked off the Boston Bruins, an 8 seed in Florida, knocking off the greatest regular season team we've seen in NHL history, the Boston Bruins, which means now, by the way, interestingly, the 2 greatest regular season teams in NHL history by points and wins both lost in the first round. Tampa a couple of years ago to the Columbus Blue Jackets, and Boston this go around to the Florida Panthers. One similarity between those two teams is that Sergei Bobrovsky was the goaltender for both. So I put a poll up. Florida, you know what? I'll get to it in a second. But my poll was, if the Sabres had squeaked in as the 8th seed, were they capable of doing what Florida just did? Upsetting the Boston Bruins. Very close. About 8,000 votes. 47.6% said yes. 52.4% said no. Now, it's very close. Probably means it was a good poll. My original thought, immediate thought, is there's a couple of differences between the Sabres and the Panthers. One that's pretty, I think, obvious. Sabres weren't as healthy as Florida going into the postseason, right? Tage Thompson dealing with a rib injury and a shoulder injury and a back injury, and Matthias Samuelsson wasn't 100%. Dahlin wasn't 100%. Important players that weren't right. Even Alex Tuck said he kind of rushed back from his injury, although he was playing great. So the injury reason is part of this. I think the goaltending might even be advantage Buffalo. It's not like Bobrovsky and Alex Lyon played great against the Bruins. I mean, Bobrovsky was letting 3 or 4 goals in every game. Lyon got pulled after 2 games. So Levi might have even been an upgrade over what Florida had. Maybe the biggest difference, if you watch that series, Florida, man, when they had to buckle down and be on their heels because Boston is that overwhelming, Florida is capable of playing that style and also playing run and gun up the ice. Matthew Tkachuk leading the way, Sasha Barkov. The Sabres, when they've got to be on their heels, they really let them in a lot. So I don't know they could have played that tough nose style that Florida had to when they had to check in to. They were killing it. So I'm on the fence. I think Levi would have given them a chance, even maybe a greater chance than Bobrovsky did for Florida. But man, you got it. Florida's not a fluke, right? Like Florida wasn't your typical 8 seed. That's another reason why I would lean no. The Sabres wouldn't have been capable. Florida, they won the President's Trophy last season. They were the best team in the regular season 1 year ago. And they had a bit of an unlucky season. Like their shooting percentage was unlucky. Their goaltending wasn't very good for them. They had some unlucky injury situations. In fact, on the season as a whole, by the advanced numbers, Florida was better than Boston. Florida in expected goals for in the regular season were where were they? Fourth? Hold on. Expected goals for at 5-on-5. Florida was fifth best in the NHL. Boston was 8th. So the 5-on-5 numbers, advanced numbers, they were still a dominant team. They just, again, were getting unlucky or injuries, goaltending, which I know is part of the equation, but I don't think it was as fluky. The Sabres, by the way, were 21st in 5-on-5 expected goals for. So there was a big difference between those two teams, despite the fact there wasn't in the standings. But I will say, it's not crazy to me if you want to answer yes to this question because of Levi, because the Sabres have all that scoring firepower. It just goes to show you, right? In the NHL, anything can happen in the postseason. So really, but based on that, you have to say yes, right? If anybody's capable of doing anything in the playoffs, which I think is the case, you have to say the Sabres were capable. It would have been less likely. How about that? The Sabres were capable of doing what Florida did. It just would have been a lot less likely than Florida doing it. Couple other playoff things real quick. Good for the Leafs. Good for the Leafs. Listen, I laugh at them. It's funny. I like rooting against them when they are losing in the first round every single year, but good for them. You know, I'll get annoyed with them, I'm sure, again, when they fill up the Sabres arena or, you know, as they progress through the playoffs, probably puffing their chest out a little bit. I did think we were going to get Toronto-Boston, which would have been the most interesting series left. We get Florida-Toronto instead. Good for the Leafs. In fact, right now, by the betting market at FanDuel, the most likely Stanley Cup final matchup is Toronto versus Edmonton. And that'd be awesome. McDavid versus Matthews, who's going to be the first team from Canada to win it in 30 years. That's going to be a sweet finals. So Oilers, they advanced in 6 past the LA Kings. So good for them too. They're the 2 most interesting teams I think left in the playoffs. Toronto and Florida. Yeah. Florida, you know, there's not a lot of rivalry there, but should be a good series. We'll come back. Jeff Skinner exit interview. Burning questions about Jeff Skinner. Recapping his season and what's ahead. There's one big question about Jeff Skinner that question does not exist for any other Buffalo Sabre at the moment. We'll get to that when we come back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase. And we are brought to you by Game Time. Let's tell you about Game Time. Game Time for tickets. Whether you're trying to go to you got some Bandits lacrosse coming up at the arena in Buffalo. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. There's exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the Game Time guarantee means that you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Get images of your seat before you buy them too, so you know exactly what you expect when you arrive. It's my favorite feature. You get the exact angle, what you'll be looking at for the game or event that you're going to. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you are set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL. You get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, last segment here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. It's time for our Jeff Skinner exit interview. If you missed our Tage Thompson exit interview, be sure to check out our last episode. We'll have Alex Tuck next for you everydayers. But Jeff Skinner had a career season at age 30 post Ralph Krueger. What a job by that guy. One of my most favorite Sabres to watch. Gets under the other team's skin. He'd be a fun guy to look for in the playoffs. But alas, he still has the NHL record for most games played in league history without playing in a single playoff game. He is now at 932 games played, which means game 58 of next season, if he plays the whole year, but at some point next year, he will break, or he'll be the first NHLer ever to play his 1,000th NHL game before playing his first playoff game. And he does not deserve that. And hopefully the Sabres are able to get him in the postseason next year. And he would be a fun playoff player just because of how much of a, ratty, get underneath your skin type of player that he is. But anyways, it was a career season. 35 goals, third most of his career. 47 assists. That's the most assists in his career by 15. He had never gotten more than 63 points. In fact, he had 63 points 4 different times, but he got to 82 this time. 82 points, career high by 19, 47 assists, a career high by 15. And I think a big reason for that is, simply put, whose line mates were. Jeff Skinner is and always has been as good as the players you put around him. Now, you can use that as a criticism against him if you want, or you could just use that as a common truth, or you could give it as a compliment. He is someone that you just know, because it's happened every year of his career that this has happened. If you put him with great players, he is going to produce on a great level. He is going to be one of the best 5-on-5 scorers in hockey, and he is. He's 6th in 5-on-5 goals in the entire National Hockey League since he entered it 12 years ago. So Skinner is as good as the players you put around him. So it's not a surprise that you put him with Tage Thompson and Alex Tuck, and he's unbelievable because he knows how to play off great players. And now he doesn't just know how to finish goals, but he really did grow as a playmaker. There are a lot of goal scorers on that line. They kind of all took turns being the playmaker. Skinner did his part with 47 assists, and he did a great job. Saucer passes, kind of passing guys open a little bit, if you will. He grew a lot as a playmaker in the 2022-23 season. And that is good, because if he can add that to his game going forward as he plays with Thompson and Tuck, and I would expect that line will stay together for years and years to come, I think Skinner is going to be above a 63-point player year to year. I think that's fair to expect from him. Now, one other career high that he had, or close to a career high, it was the second highest expected goals for percentage of his career. 2014-15 was the only, with Carolina, was the only season in which he was better, which is actually funny. His best season in terms of expected goals for was his worst season, worst non-Ralph Krueger season. He only had 18 goals and 31 points, but he was great that year. Just a little bit snake bitten. This year, unbelievable. The points showed up with it. Now, The biggest question about Jeff Skinner, a player who now is going into his age 31 season and has 4 years left on the contract. That's typically the time when you start to regret the contract. Now, his timeline got all big wonky because of the Ralph Kruger, interruption, if I'll call it that. At age 31 and in the second half of your contract, that's when you think you're going to start to regret it. Here's why I have a good amount of confidence that that's not going to happen with Skinner for at least 2-3 years. I think Skinner's skating ability plus his finishing ability means he's going to last. His value is going to last, that he's not going to be shot. A lot of guys, like I remember TJ Oshie for this with that Capitals contract he's on right now. The straight ahead speed, when it goes away, these guys are shot. Okposo this year. Why did he go from 20 goals to, what was it, 11? I mean, part of the reason is power play minutes, but another reason why is the skating really went away. And Skinner's not someone that's ever been fast up and down the ice. His skating ability is on his edge work, and it's the figure skating background, right? That's not going away. And so in that way, his skating ability feels like it's always going to be there. It almost reminds me of Jágr a little bit. Jágr lasted into his mid 40s because he was so strong on his skates and he would just stick his butt out. And he did that in his 20s. He would stick his butt out and like post you up. There's nothing you could do about it. Well, that's not going anywhere. He's not going to lose that into his 30s and 40s. And I feel like Skinner's edge work and the way he can spin around and he can get leverage on the puck when other guys can't, and that allows him to win battles that he shouldn't win. Like, I feel like that unique skating ability is going to allow him to last. Plus his ability as a goal scorer. The finishing ability is not going anywhere. So I don't think he has to be a burner. He doesn't have to be a straight up and down speed guy. He can lose a little bit of speed, and I think that he'll continue to play well. So I think he's someone you could count on for at least 2 to 3 more years of this 4-year contract that's remaining. But they got to get this guy to the playoffs. They got to get this guy to the postseason. So Jeff Skinner. If I were giving grades out, I'd give an A+ to Tage Thompson. The last episode, I would have to give an A+ to Jeff Skinner for having the best season of his career at age 30. And we have to give him an A+ too, because I'm still feel very bad for him that he had to go through the Ralph Kruger ordeal for 2 years. But he's measured based on his goal scoring, Ralph. He's doing pretty well. All right, next up on our Locked On Sabres podcast for you everydayers, we will go through our Alex Tuch exit interview. We'll start doubling up, so I think we'll do Casey Mittelstadt next as well, and we'll talk some playoffs as well. So come back for that next time here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase at Sneaky Joe Sports at Locked On Sabres. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. And again, next up, Alex Tuch and Casey Mittelstadt.